The glittering lights of Hollywood often blind us to the profound human struggles that take place just behind the velvet ropes and outside the glare of the flashing paparazzi cameras. We look at the silver screen and see icons of health, strength, and perfection, individuals who seem completely immune to the fragile realities of the human condition that affect the rest of us daily. For years, one particular leading man embodied this exact image of masculine vitality and peak physical perfection. Known worldwide for his imposing stature, commanding screen presence, and roles that required an almost superhuman level of physical conditioning, he seemed like the absolute picture of unstoppable energy. Yet, beneath that carefully constructed exterior of Hollywood glamour and physical dominance, a terrifying and quiet storm was brewing, one that would completely shatter his reality and force him into a desperate, year-long battle just to stay alive. It is a sobering reminder that no amount of fame, wealth, or physical strength can shield a person from the sudden, devastating, unpredictable nature of a medical crisis. When the cameras stop rolling and the crowds go home, even the most celebrated figures must face their deepest vulnerabilities in the quiet isolation of a hospital room, wondering if they will ever make it out to see the light of day again. Before we dive deeper into this incredible and deeply moving journey of survival against all odds, please take a quick moment to subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you never miss an exclusive Hollywood update or inspiring true story like this one for the better part of a decade. This beloved performer was privately living through an unimaginable nightmare that he kept entirely hidden from the public eye, managing to put on a brave face for his millions of adoring fans while his own body was rapidly turning against him. While the entertainment tabloids were constantly filled with stories focusing on his high-profile relationships, his high-status red carpet appearances, and his various upcoming cinematic projects, the true story of his life was actually unfolding in the sterile, frustratingly silent offices of medical specialists and inside the deep, exhausting fog of chronic pain. It was a secret ordeal so severe that it ultimately led to a life-saving organ amputation, a shocking medical development that completely upended his sense of self and threw him into a profound existential crisis. Imagine reaching the absolute pinnacle of your professional career, being celebrated globally for your strength and appearance, while simultaneously enduring a hidden physical breakdown that traditional modern medicine could neither fully explain nor adequately treat. Week after week, month after month, he found himself trapped in a confusing maze of diagnostic tests, conflicting medical opinions, and experimental treatments that offered little to no relief, leaving him feeling increasingly abandoned by the very healthcare systems designed to save us. This was not just a minor health scare or a temporary setback that could be easily cured with rest and standard medication, but rather a prolonged, agonizing 7-year fight for basic survival that pushed him to the absolute brink of his physical and emotional endurance. As the years dragged on and the debilitating symptoms continued to mount, the frustration with conventional medical practices grew into a deep, heavy despair that threatened to consume his entire outlook on life. When the most advanced medical technology and the most brilliant minds in modern science are left completely baffled by your condition, leaving you with few answers and no clear path toward recovery, where do you possibly turn next? This agonizing lack of clarity forced the actor to step completely outside the boundaries of everything he had ever known, embarking on a deeply personal, unconventional quest for healing that looked far beyond Western medicine. He began to explore the mystical realms of ancient shamanic practices, immersing himself in pagan rituals and studying ancient myths that had guided humanity through suffering for thousands of years. This was a radical departure for someone rooted in the highly commercialized, superficial world of modern entertainment, representing a total surrender to the unknown and a desperate, beautiful rebirth of his own inner spirituality. In his search for answers to why his body was failing him so completely, he also began to look backward into the past, digging deep into his own complex family genealogy and uncovering long-lost records that held startling clues about his heritage. He discovered that the blood flowing through his veins belonged to a resilient lineage of survivors, including ancestors who had miraculously escaped the horrors of the Armenian genocide, as well as generations of family members who had silently endured their own battles with chronic illness. This profound realization that his current physical suffering was deeply intertwined with the historical trauma and inherited resilience of his ancestors completely transformed his perspective on his illness. He began to understand that his body was not just experiencing a random biological failure, but was perhaps carrying the unhealed weight of the past, acting as a living canvas for the stories of survival that came before him. This grueling 7-year journey of agony, discovery, and ultimate transformation has now culminated in a deeply personal and emotionally expansive memoir titled Bloodlines, which is officially scheduled to hit bookshelves everywhere on October 13th. The upcoming book promises to be far more than just a typical celebrity memoir detailing a medical crisis, instead offering readers a raw, searching, and heart-pounding account of what happens when the life you have carefully constructed can no longer contain the heavy truth of what you are carrying inside. It explores the complex intersections of illness, inheritance, masculinity, faith, and ambition, challenging us all to think about the fragile identities we build for ourselves and how we cope when those identities are completely stripped away. As we prepare to delve into the specific details of the devastating autoimmune collapse that ravaged his body and the shocking details of the life-saving surgery he underwent, we are left to marvel at the sheer strength it takes to survive such a prolonged period of darkness and emerge with a renewed sense of purpose and selfhood. The curtain of secrecy is finally being pulled back, revealing the terrifying specifics of the medical nightmare that Joe Manganiello endured in total isolation from his global fanbase. To understand the true scale of this crisis, one must realize that the actor was not facing a single easily identifiable disease, but rather a relentless, compounding cascade of autoimmune-related illnesses that systematically launched an all-out assault on his entire physiology. Over the course of 7 agonizing years, this internal warfare wreaked absolute havoc on multiple vital systems simultaneously, turning his own biology into a hostile battleground. The condition viciously targeted his skin, his thyroid, his eyes, his lungs, and his digestive tract, leaving no aspect of his physical well-being untouched. Imagine waking up every day to find that the very systems responsible for keeping you alive and healthy are actively destroying themselves, causing a terrifying domino effect where the treatment for one symptom only seems to aggravate another. His skin was plagued by painful, visible flare-ups that made the simple act of wearing clothes and exercise in pure agony, while his thyroid function fluctuated wildly, completely draining his energy reserves and leaving him in a state of permanent, crushing exhaustion. The inflammation soon spread to his eyes, threatening his vision and making the intense studio lighting of Hollywood film sets practically unbearable, while his lungs and digestive system faced constant, unpredictable distress that made normal breathing and nutrition a daily struggle throughout this entire horrific ordeal. The most frustrating and terrifying element for Manganiello was the complete and utter inability of traditional modern medicine to provide him with any concrete answers or a definitive diagnosis. He traveled across the country, consulting with the most renowned specialists, undergoing endless rounds of blood tests, advanced imaging, and painful biopsies, only to be met with sympathetic shrugs and baffled expressions from the medical establishment. The top minds in clinical research were left entirely perplexed by the unique, aggressive nature of his multi-system collapse, leaving him with no clear explanation and no proven therapeutic roadmap to follow. This complete lack of medical clarity placed an immense psychological burden on the star, who was forced to navigate a prolonged fight for basic survival while being told by the world's best doctors that they simply did not know how to fix him. The physical torment was compounded by a deep, shattering existential crisis as he watched the elite physical conditioning he had spent decades building completely vanish under the weight of chronic, unyielding pain. For a man whose entire career and sense of identity were deeply rooted in his physical strength, watching his body deteriorate without any medical explanation was a soul-crushing experience that forced him to question the very foundation of who he was. As the internal inflammation reached a critical, life-threatening peak, the situation deteriorated to a point where emergency intervention became the only option left to keep him alive. It was during this darkest hour that Manganiello had to undergo a life-saving organ amputation, a drastic and highly invasive surgical procedure that was required to remove a severely compromised part of his body before the systemic damage became completely irreversible. The sheer terror facing such an extreme, permanent surgical measure, while already weakened by years of chronic illness, is almost impossible to fully comprehend. The operation was a high-stakes, emergency gamble that ultimately succeeded in saving his life, yet it left him with deep physical and emotional scars that would take years to even begin processing. This critical turning point occurred against the backdrop of immense personal upheaval, as his long-term marriage to fellow Hollywood superstar Sofia Vergara was simultaneously coming to an end. The couple, who had been married for 7 years and were widely considered one of the most stable and glamorous pairings in the entertainment industry, shocked the public by officially announcing their decision to divorce in July of 23. In their dignified public statement, they expressed a deep, continuing mutual respect and love for one another, politely asking the media and the public for privacy as they navigated this incredibly painful new phase of their respective lives, the convergence of a catastrophic health crisis, a major life-saving surgery, and the painful dissolution of his marriage created a perfect storm of personal devastation that could have easily broken even the strongest individual. Yet, it was precisely within this profound emptiness and loss that Manganiello began to look outward and backward, completely shifting his approach to survival. Recognizing that conventional clinical protocols had utterly failed to provide him with a path forward, he deliberately stepped away from the sterile environment of traditional hospitals to seek answers in the ancient, long-forgotten wisdom of humanity. This search led him to explore the mysterious world of shamanic healing, traveling to meet with traditional spiritual practitioners who viewed illness not merely as a mechanical failure of the body, but as a profound disharmony of the spirit and soul. He willingly participated in ancient pagan rituals, immersed himself in timeless mythologies, and began a deep, intensive study of how different cultures throughout history have conceptualized and transcended human suffering. This radical, deeply unconventional spiritual journey allowed him to cultivate an entirely new internal framework for understanding his pain, moving away from a mindset of victimhood and toward a profound, transformative rebirth of his own personal spirituality. While exploring these ancient spiritual realms, Manganiello also turned his attention inward toward his own bloodline, embarking on a fascinating and exhaustive investigation into his family's genealogy to see if the roots of his physical suffering were buried in the past. Through meticulous research into long-lost historical documents and old family records, he uncovered incredible, deeply moving stories of survival that had been passed down through generations of his ancestors. Most notably, he discovered that he was directly descended from individuals who had miraculously survived the horrors of the Armenian genocide, enduring unimaginable systemic trauma, displacement, and loss, yet somehow finding the strength to carry on and pass life down to the next generation. He also uncovered a pattern of chronic, unexplained illnesses that had quietly plagued various members of his family tree for decades. Realizing that his own modern medical battle was deeply connected to a historical lineage of physical vulnerability and inherited resilience, this monumental discovery completely changed how he viewed his 7-year struggle, as he came to realize that the blood flowing through his veins was the blood of ultimate survivors, and that his current fight for life was a continuation of the very same endurance that had allowed his ancestors to overcome the darkest chapters of human history. This profound connection to his ancestral roots and the deep spiritual awakening he experienced during his darkest hours completely redefined the trajectory of Joe Manganiello's life, transforming his agonizing physical breakdown into a powerful catalyst for ultimate rebirth and new beginnings. Armed with a renewed understanding of his heritage and an unbreakable sense of resilience, the actor did not merely survive his 7-year medical ordeal, he emerged from it as a completely changed man, ready to embrace both his past and his future with absolute clarity and fearlessness. As his health gradually stabilized through a combination of unconventional holistic practices and the lingering benefits of his life-saving surgery, the universe seemed to reward his immense endurance by bringing profound new love and emotional stability back into his life. In September of 23, right amidst the quiet aftermath of his personal and physical trials, Manganiello was first linked to the brilliant and beautiful actress Caitlin O'Connor, known to audiences worldwide for her memorable roles in hit television series like 2.5 Men. What began as a quiet, deeply supportive companionship quickly blossomed into a powerful, transformative romance, with the couple making their relationship official to the public in December of that same year. O'Connor proved to be an absolute pillar of strength and a source of joy for the recovering star, standing proudly by his side as he continued to rebuild his life from the ground up. The depth of their incredible bond became beautifully apparent to the world when the couple joyfully announced their engagement in October of 25, giving fans a heartwarming glimpse into their private happiness. It was later revealed that Manganiello had actually popped the big question months earlier, back in June, choosing a quiet, deeply personal moment to ask O'Connor to share the rest of her life with him. Seeing the 49-year-old actor looking exceptionally radiant, deeply happy, and profoundly healthy alongside his stunning fiancée, who recently turned heads sizzling in a gorgeous swimsuit photo shoot, has been an immense source of inspiration for millions of fans who watched him endure years of silent, debilitating suffering. This beautiful chapter of romantic fulfillment and physical recovery marks a stunning contrast to the years of darkness that preceded it, serving as a living testament to the fact that no matter how completely your life is shattered by crisis, there is always a profound capacity for renewal, love, and joy waiting on the other side of survival. Manganiello's journey reminds us that the endings we face in life, whether they are the dissolution of a long marriage or the permanent loss of an organ, are often just the painful, necessary clearings required for beautiful new beginnings to take root and flourish. Now, as he stands on the cusp of sharing his full story with the world through his highly anticipated memoir Bloodlines, hitting bookshelves everywhere on October 13th, Manganiello is ready to fully reveal the deep wisdom he gained from staring directly into the abyss of his own mortality. Bloodlines promises to be an absolute masterpiece of emotional journalism, moving far beyond the simple tropes of a standard celebrity health update to offer a searing, deeply philosophical exploration of what it truly means to be a human being living through a crisis. The book delves deep into the complex mechanics of inheritance, analyzing how the unhealed traumas, hidden illnesses, and ultimate triumphs of our distant ancestors physically live on within our own modern bodies and shape the biological realities we face today. It is a profound, deeply moving meditation on masculinity, examining how a man celebrated for his outward physical dominance and traditional strength learns to redefine his identity when his body completely fails him, forcing him to find a deeper, much more resilient form of internal strength rooted in vulnerability, faith, and spiritual surrender. Manganiello beautifully explores the fragile nature of ambition, showing how the grand professional goals and complex identity we carefully construct for ourselves can instantly vaporize in a medical emergency, leaving us to confront the raw, unvarnished truth of who we are when everything else is stripped away. The incredible story of Joe Manganiello is ultimately a universal narrative about the profound resilience of the human spirit when faced with the absolute limit of physical and emotional endurance. It challenges each and every one of us to look closely at our own lives, our own heritages, and the hidden burdens we carry daily, urging us to recognize that our current struggles are deeply connected to a much larger, timeless story of human survival. His willingness to step completely outside the comfortable boundaries of traditional Western medicine, to embrace the mystical teachings of ancient shamans, and to honor the harrowing survival of his Armenian ancestors demonstrates a rare, inspiring level of courage that will undoubtedly offer comfort and guidance to countless individuals fighting their own silent battles with chronic illness and despair. As we look forward to the release of Bloodlines this October, we are reminded that true strength is not measured by the perfection of our bodies or the absence of suffering in our lives, but by our willingness